Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Mandić, and I will be talking about agile ways of working, how you are all full ideas, and then you come to your company, and then you need to talk to regulators, and how that turns up. Maybe just a quick show of hand. Who of you is working with regulators or need to do some reporting to regulators? Okay. So this is me on my first day of school. You can see I'm all ready for the school. I'm coming there with a great idea of what I want to do. I was already learning to read, and in Croatia, everything is subtitled. So if I want to watch cartoons or movies or anything, I needed to read. And I wanted to improve my speed of my reading so I can stop annoying my parents to read for me. So I had a goal. School was starting. I was ready. I came my first day in the school, and they messed up because they sent me to the wrong class, and I was totally lost, and my first day of school was not so funny. So when we think about it, it's similar when we come to the company. I'm an agile coach. I come to a company. I know they want my help because they hire me. I'm all excited, and something happens, and things don't go as planned. Similar thing is then, just to give you a background where I'm coming from. I started working as a software engineer, and I worked in a lot of companies that are kind of a startup type of a way, very progressive, everything was looking great. And then I started working in companies that are regulated, financial sector. But I assume that also pharmacy sector, financial sector, any kind of a reporting is very similar. It's when you walk in and you realize that the ecosystem is behaving completely different, and all of my ideas and ideas that I bring with myself are not playing as I wanted. So let's go back to the basics. So what do we want to do, and how can we achieve it even in a regulated environment? Because talking to regulators doesn't mean that we cannot achieve these values that we want to achieve. And I'm going to try to mention some examples, what I have experienced, and how I try to go around it to achieve better results. First thing that smacks you in your face when you come into a new place where that is very regulated is that you are met with a lot of rules. Just to add also to my story, I worked also in Germany, and yeah, they like rules. They like rules on the rules. So it was very funny. So the first one, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. This is one where a lot of people can come and think, okay, we need to talk to each other, fine. But also I am a little bit sometimes coming to it backwards. How do I make people to listen to me because they value processes and tools? So how do I win them to do that? And you can go it in two ways. Just coming and saying, I'm an agile coach, let's follow this, let's talk, and everything will be fine. It's not going anywhere. I still haven't won their trust. But on the other hand, you need to take them on the journey. So I'm going to now tell you two situations how we went about it. One of those was when we came in and said, look, if we try to improve our process, if we introduce this new type of a collaboration, everything will be better. So we propose, there were two coaches there, we came and we propose you this, this, and this. And the whole room went, no, we are not doing that. We don't trust you, and we don't believe in that. So what we did is actually three people that were most loud in the room, we invited them into a working group. And we said, okay, it's your process. You know what it works for you. And that was a company that was producing reports for European central banks, so very regulated. So let's see, what do you propose? How would you like to collaborate to achieve that? So that small working group of them started meeting, exchanging ideas. And what I did is when they came to me and said, we thought about this, this, and that, I nudged them with few questions. Have you thought about this? Or maybe if you do that, it might end up with a counterproductive action. So would you like it to do it this or that way? And by the end, of their working group, they proposed the result to their colleagues, and it was 85% very similar to what I presented, but it came from them, and they own it. And by taking them on that journey to come to the same conclusion, they accepted it. So that 15% that they changed something, it wasn't that important. So by some questions and by following them on that journey and probing them with some questions and ideas, we achieved what we wanted. And also with that, they started trusting a little bit more and got involved with a little bit more. And the other colleagues that were not buying anything from me, I then stepped back and they were presenting, and that's how they got the trust from their colleagues. Another example where I said that sometimes I'm doing things backwards. People that work in companies that are, unfortunately, I have this bias. When I think about heavily regulated companies, I also think of very non-tech savvy companies. Yes, they have developers, they are working as software company, but they are very, very slow in adopting tools. Those companies are more on the paper, written documents and stuff like that, and they're not so advanced in looking at the tools, at looking what they can get from the tools. And people working in those companies cannot even imagine new ways of working that we are talking about. So visualization and making them see things is very important. So sometimes in some situations we would come and say, oh, if we do it this way, or if we change the process, you will be able to see, you will be able to get these metrics, or your process will improve. But they just cannot see it. So building a small prototype of the tool, going into Jira that we all love, and building the dashboard for them to show. Yes, in banks, you cannot use shiny tools. You need to use in-house tools, and that's where Jira and those are coming into play. But building that thing for them, where they can see it, feel it, click on it, that's how you win their trust, that you know what you're talking about. And after they have been trying it for a month or two, then they say, yes, this is now what we want to do. Because I can see it, and now I understand it. No matter how much I talk about it, no matter how much I draw it on a whiteboard, until they actually see that in the tool, they cannot envisage, because they have never worked with those tools or in that environment. So it's slowly taking them on a journey with the tools, with the principles, with the mindset. All of that needs to be taken in account. Any questions maybe around this? No? If it is a quick one.
So my question is towards this specific point here. I also had the experience that it works like this. Just in context, sometimes you are in context where you have the same people you would need for many things. That means they have only little time, and you wouldn't get them to do it that way, because you would have to have them in the workshop, for example, yourself. So do you have another tip for that? Maybe later.
Maybe later? Let me try to cover that later. Yeah, question was how to free people to engage with you because they have their daily job. Yeah. Okay. Next one is about working software over comprehensive documentation. In the companies I worked with, it's always about documenting what you're doing, getting sign-offs before you can even start talking to developers, getting sign-off on ideas, getting sign-off on design, getting sign-off on everything, and then we will start working. That means that all of the experimentation, requirement gathering, all of the ideas were done at one point in time, and then 3 years later, I'm talking to some developer and tester who need to do it. On the other hand, you cannot go without documentation. These systems in those companies are so complicated that you need documentation. And being agile doesn't mean no documentation. And that's the first thing we start saying to people who come and say, yeah, if you go agile, we will be unregulated. No, everything needs documentation. You need to follow some processes. But think about how much of documentation you need and how much of sign-offs do you need. It went so far away that they actually wanted in a ticketing system a proof that they had a refinement session to talk about requirements. They wanted a tick box on a ticket saying, yes, we talked to our PO, and our PO said that we can start the work, and yes, we talked to our PO, and our product owner said that we can finish this ticket because it's good enough. So stepping back from that thinking about everything needs to be signed off, everything needs to be evidenced, to let's design our processes in a way that movement through the process show us that we have implicit sign-off. Be very aware in those situations about self-censoring. What I mean by that is that all of these companies have internal audit and internal regulators. And when we were trying to redesign the process, they came and said, no, regulators will never accept that you had a call, that somebody on the call said, yes, fine, I like this ticket, and it can be marked as done. But actually, when we talked to regulators, they said, we know that some companies are now working in agile ways of working. So we understand what we need from you is to document your process. We need to know that moving a ticket from status A to status B actually means that somebody has thought about it. And if that is implicitly approval and it's documented and everybody works in that way, that's good enough for us. But our internal regulators and auditors said, no, it needs to be a checkbox in JIRA that actually PO said that's fine. Because there was a fear, because those people they were hired to be scared of things and to make sure everything is documented. So think about when in your company and in your processes are you self-censoring yourself. In a current company, there is a control to talk about risks and to see that the risk is counteracted and mitigated. And they said, we need a sign-off from project manager that the code is written in a good way. So project manager, who is not software engineer, is signing off a document saying developers have written clean code without code repetitions and stuff like that. That is tick box activity. That doesn't assure that our code is good, that is legible, that is used in a proper way. But it's a wrong way of evidencing something. So be aware of those things. So documentation is good, in a good place, that helps people work on it. Documentation just for the documentation and for handoffs is not so good. And that's where you end up with something like this. Ask yourself, is it really something we need to do? Or is it just to be sure and tick box activity? Okay. Next one, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. In this case, customer, for me, are people working in the company. They are my customers. So it's not the users of the application, it's the people in the company. I came to one of the companies before, and we started doing agile transformation, teaching them about iterative work, about planning smaller pieces of work in iterations, stuff like that. Those people were hired to be experts in their work. They were hired because they knew a specific piece of regulation for a certain country, because it was reporting to the European Central Bank. They had a person for each country for regulations of that country. So they were valued as SMEs for a certain thing. And then I came in and said, oh, this is great. We are now agile team. We want to collaborate. We want two people working on the same task, because then you can go on vacation. Or if you win a lottery, go to Hawaii, there is somebody who can pick up your work. Which was completely opposite from how they were hired, how they were valued in the company, and how they were perceiving themselves. So me coming and saying, let's share the work, let's teach somebody else in the team what you do, they felt like they will lose their job, they will lose their position. So to counteract that one is that you go and talk to people services. You cannot do agile transformation but just by talking to teams. It's the whole ecosystem around them. So if you think you will go to the team, talk to them and reassure them that everything will work without talking to people services, without talking to IT systems around them and everything else, it's not going to work. I can say so many times that I want 2 people to work on the most important ticket in that iteration, and forget lower impact tickets. If we cannot finish the most important, then our iteration will not succeed. So let's leave less important and let's all group on this ticket that needs to be done. But then 3 weeks later, they have a meeting with their performance manager asking them, how many tickets have you finished? Well, I was helping my friend and I didn't finish any in this iteration. Oh, yearly performance review, underachiever. So it's not just talking to the team. You cannot go agile and talk about these principles if the whole company is not there. And that, once I understood what was their problem, why they didn't want to collaborate, they also hired a very good people services manager. We went to talk to everybody. We reorganized the bonus system and description of their roles. And that's when we saw the benefits of the teams and collaborating and sharing ideas, sharing the knowledge. They also had to redo their interview process because it was not anymore about, you have probably heard about the term of I person who is very deep as an SME. They were now starting to interview for a T-shaped person who has wider knowledge because in the job they will learn from other experts. It's not so important anymore that you are very good in one area and nothing else because you cannot help the team in that case. So be aware, again, about all of the ecosystem. And then responding to change over following a plan. Again, if we look at the company is my client, the company is the one I'm looking at, all of these teams doing something, all of these teams planning something, we can talk to them, we can say, okay, great, let's now make a plan let's make a plan in a way that you are planning on a quarterly basis, not on a yearly basis. Let's every quarter review that plan. Let's talk about objectives and key results. Let's monitor what your value producing is, not anymore how many tasks and actions have you ticked, how many story points have you finished. Let's see what was actually delivered to the client, what's the value, any of the business measures have we achieved. Again, on the team level, on the group level, that's great. And then those managers say, yes, but I would like to see a yearly or 2 years or 3 years plan because I need to talk to my senior managers or in some cases to my board members. Board members want to see that we know where we are going, so coming to them and saying, we're going to experiment for 1 or 2 quarters to see if our ideas are valid and then we will see what we will do. Not going like that. In that case, what we are trying to do, and I cannot tell you it succeeded because we are in the process of it, but we are trying to talk and to educate and coach also board members. It's not, again, it's an ecosystem. I cannot go to a group of people. Even if I go to senior managers, I need to coach also people who are receiving information from them, not just giving information. And that's where even if they are creating plans which are not telling you anymore, release will be there and it's going to be done on that day, but there are other things that they need to think about, and maybe it's not a fully planned 2 years, but we have an objective. Are we going to do, what kinds of feature we will do might change in that plan, but we have something where we want to get, and we want to have an impact. Which features we released might change in that plan. So, idea is it's all an ecosystem, and just going into a team and saying, I'm going to make you great now, and you're going to be an agile team, it's not going to work. Because that team cannot operate on their own in those companies that have bigger obstacles or regulations or stuff like that. Another thing is the big change with those companies is starting to learn about reading live data. That is something like blows their mind because Companies like to have Friday by noon or Friday by 5 p.m. Here is a presentation with our metrics. This is what we achieved, and it's usually project manager thinking, how do I sanitize all of the information I have so I can put it into my presentation, and then that's my status report. And that's accumulated, and then 3 weeks later, it's some kind of a senior management meeting where that presentation is presented. 3 weeks later, which is 6 weeks after the presentation was created, it's a board member meeting or CEO meeting or something like that. So the same information is then showed. In 6 weeks, all of the world can change. You can have risks that are now exploded. You can have failed releases. You can have this or that. Or even the information, how you measure what have you achieved, can be different. I saw a project that was on budget, on time, delivered on a day, everything was fine, and everybody was congratulated and called the best project of the year. Until a week later, there was a huge article in newspapers that for next 2 months, all of the clients of the bank will have a messed up credit score. Project was success. It was on time, on budget, and everybody finished their work when they were supposed to. But that's not what we need to report on. We need to be looking at the live data. And one of the big things is teaching senior managers and board members to start reading live data. And those metrics that the team is seeing also should be seen through the whole company. Reading live data, reading dashboards, reading stuff that they can then understand, and not 6 weeks or 2 months old information once it bubbles up to them. So this is very, very, very quick review and few examples what I experienced. This is actually a probing question. If you want, I'm here also tomorrow. I would love to talk about this more. I would love to hear your situations. What have you observed? And I have been in 3 financial companies, so I have more stories to tell about if you're interested.